Welcome to the Clear the Shelf podcast with Chris and Chris, the show that meets at the intersection of education and entertainment to discuss online arbitrage, retail arbitrage, wholesale, and all facets of selling on Amazon. We'll bring you news, tactics, strategies, insights, stories, and interviews to help you grow your Amazon business. And now, here are your hosts, Chris Grant and Chris Racic. What's up, Amazon sellers, and welcome back to the Clear the Shelf podcast with myself and my hierophantic co-host, Chris Racic. Our guest this week is Nick Huber, and I'm sure you've seen him on Twitter where he's built a massive following, sharing advice on business, real estate, and what he calls sweaty startups. He now runs a bit of an empire with storage units, an insurance business, an overseas talent company, and honestly, the list might be shorter of the businesses he doesn't have a hand in. But Nick has also added author to his resume with his first book, The Sweaty Startup, How to Get Rich Doing Boring Things. And why should you pay attention to this episode as an Amazon seller especially? That's because Nick's mastered what a lot of us are chasing, turning cash flow into long-term wealth, and doing it in a way that doesn't rely on flashy tech or hitting some unicorn home run. So today we're going to dive into how to reinvest your profits smartly, when to branch out, how to avoid being stuck on the Amazon hamster wheel forever, and which boring businesses might actually make you rich. Nick, thanks for being here, man.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you guys know, before we get started, you guys know the drill. This show isn't free. We spend minutes prepping for each episode, and it shows. But if you get any value out of this episode, maybe a laugh, an idea, a business you might want to steal, do us a solid, hit the like button, subscribe, maybe even drop a comment. This podcast grows when you engage, and if you keep your end of the deal, we'll keep showing up with the good stuff. All right, let's get into it. So, as people get into business, they don't often have people believe in them. In some cases, they even have folks who will make fun of them or try to break them down. And in your book, there's a story in there that's great, where you talk about your track teammates calling you a dumbass. And then on a recent podcast, you also talked about the challenges you faced writing this book. Specifically, you said, some days I would reread a chapter and think, who's going to want to read this? So whether the voice is in your own head or whether it's coming from smug teammates, what can you tell us about overcoming doubt when pursuing like your own path to success?
I'll tell you that I know a lot of incompetent, I don't know if incompetent's the right word, but I know a lot of normal people who make an abnormal amount of money just because they're not insecure. I think one of my gifts from a very young age is and it's also a little bit of a curse, there's a balance here, is just an unwavering, irrational confidence almost. Hey, I can do it. Nobody has to give me permission. I can do this. I know it's going to be scary. I know it's going to be hard. I think part of it comes from the fact that I'm an optimist. So I think that everything is going to be a little bit easier than it's going to be, that it ends up being. Everybody in business knows that story. But yeah, man, like life is hard. Business is hard. Doing anything at a high level is really hard. So you might as well just get comfortable in these uncomfortable situations and treat it like a muscle and work it out and just practice being in these uncomfortable situations. And I've been kind of doing that my entire career, from buying that first cargo van on Craigslist and getting made fun of for starting that moving company, to you're writing a book and you get a big book deal and then you're in your own head for 6 months working on it and you got no feedback. I'm used to a world where I can tweet and seconds later I have positive or negative feedback from thousands of people. And you write a whole book without that external feedback. So there's highs where I think this is going to be awesome and it's going to sell a bunch of copies. And then there's lows where I'm like, man, I didn't have permission to write this. Like, who am I?
Mm-hmm. Now, you said that you maybe felt that way, like even as a kid. For those who don't necessarily just aren't born that way, is there a way to build that muscle?
Yeah, I like literally writing down the worst thing that can happen when you're about to make a career defining decision. So it's called fear setting. It was popularized by Tim Ferriss. My style is a little bit different, but when I'm about to make a decision, whether it's hiring somebody, buying a building, buying a company, building that first self-storage facility, launching in a new market, whatever it might be, my question and my process is always the same. Like, okay, wake up early, get coffee, get a blank piece of paper, and literally write down the worst case scenario. If the worst string of events happens after you make this decision, write it down. Like, what happened first? Okay, like this branch didn't work, we lost 50 grand, or this building didn't work. The worst case scenario on that first building, I personally guaranteed $1.5 million of debt to build that first self-storage facility. Worst thing scenario there was literal bankruptcy. I lose my business, didn't have a house yet, so, and I didn't have any kids yet, so it was a little bit easier to swallow than it would be for a lot of people, but I wrote it all down. It's like, bankruptcy. Okay, then what? What does my life actually look like if I go bankrupt? Well, I'm not in China where I have a personal credit score and I can never get a loan again for the rest of my life, and I actually can't even get a job. I'm in America where bankruptcy is temporary. I have 2 parents who are still married and they have a house. And while it's a small house, I could probably take my wife and my newborn that was on the way, take them there and live in that basement. And I could get another job at a real estate business because we built a self-storage facility. I could probably go make 200 grand a year because of what I learned. That's not so bad.
Mm-hmm. So is it a matter of becoming comfortable with the worst case scenario, or is there something to be said about limiting that downside risk?
Absolutely. It's a combination, and this is a balance, right? I'm not telling people to get out there and just be dangerous, but I think just seeing it on paper, like looking at it and thinking about yourself in that situation, all of a sudden it's not as daunting as you thought. And very few decisions or career changes or new ventures can even have the potential to bankrupt you if you treat them the right way, if you bootstrap them, if you do whatever. So, many times I fear set, like I'm about to walk into a meeting with a really good friend of mine. This was one of the hardest conversations I've ever had. He stood up at my wedding, and about a month later, I needed to fire him from my company. He worked for me. Right before, I was just super anxious about this all week. I wasn't sleeping. It was just a gut wrenching ish problem. And it wasn't even all him. It was like our business couldn't support him in one area. And so I did fear setting before that conversation. Like, hey, what's the worst thing that can happen here? Nick says something rude and mean that he can't take back and it ruins the relationship. Okay. Saw it on paper. We know this guy's going to go get another job. He's very well networked. He's got a supportive family. The worst case scenario is I can control that. My circle is I can control that. Keep your cool. Don't say anything stupid. Treat the guy with empathy. And it was fine. I felt better after the meeting. So yeah, it's a combination for sure.
Yeah, nice. So Nick, we talk about Amazon sellers and primarily like the arbitrage model, and taking advantage of inefficiencies in the market. And the vast majority of Amazon sellers start scrappy, right? And that's we scan the shelves and we're looking for something to flip on the marketplace. Scrappy is something that's not unfamiliar to you, of course. You were carrying people's stuff up and down stairs, helping them move. What do you think, in your opinion, people get wrong about those unsexy beginnings? And how does that initial hustle and willingness to get your hands dirty, how does that linger as your career goes on?
Man, first of all, I love it. I think that is the best way to start. So many people ask me where to start or what business to start, and my answer is always the same: trade your time for money and go get some experience, go get some capital, and go meet some people, because people, network, and money are what you really need to really grow a business. And you need to know what you're doing, like operational chops. Like my first business was really hard. We had 25 major colleges, 12 states. We rented 14 warehouses. Our largest was 60,000 square feet at our peak. We filled it up with boxes. We did pickups and deliveries. We had 200 plus part-time employees. They were driving box trucks around major cities with cyclists and families and other vehicles. But that first business was about acquiring the ability, operational chops, like how to make decisions, how to lead, how to delegate, how to spot decisions, or how to spot opportunity and how to make better decisions. So I think a lot of people try to put the cart before the horse, and they try to go create a scalable business on day one. And I think that's a really terrible way to go about entrepreneurship. So I tell people to go sell something, clean something, repair something, move something. It's pretty easy to start. And then, business is all about momentum. And if you do things right and you start to learn, you just have a new appreciation for those good opportunities when they present themselves. You have the skill set to capitalize on that. And business is so much about momentum, man. Like 10 years ago, I was in Boston, Massachusetts, carrying boxes up spiral staircases. No, actually, 2020, 5 years ago, right at this time, I was in dorm rooms in George Washington during COVID, loading up, packing dorms. I was packing dorms, FaceTiming kids. And here we are 5 years later. So you gotta be scrappy. Everybody wants to put the cart before the horse, for sure.
Yeah. And I love that advice. It's refreshing to hear, because so many people are looking for the lottery ticket, and they completely skip the step that it's a grind and it's going to take time. And, as things change with the Amazon landscape that we deal with, you have to solve those problems. And part of that is being willing to get back in there and do the ugly stuff, the unsexy stuff. So I saw your podcast.
What I love about
Sorry.
the Amazon selling business is that, like, my mantra of life, and one of the reasons why I'm successful, is that I change my mind often. I have a sticker on my bathroom window that I see every morning when I wake up. It's taped on there. It's a piece of paper. It says, change your mind often. It's like, as soon as I get emotionally attached to one model, one item, one technique, it stops working, or something changes about the competitive landscape, and you have to be dynamic. You have to be unemotional. You have to make logical decisions. I think nowhere is that more true than Amazon.
Since we're on the topic of bootstrapping and being scrappy, yeah, I would say 99% of our audience, they self-fund their businesses. Now, maybe that comes through some credit cards and things like that, but for the most part, it's coming from their own pocket. How, when you are bootstrapping and you're just risking your own money, you're not taking, money from VCs or anything like that, how does that change the way that you balance growth with risk?
So my first business, I went from idea to $3,000 cash on my bed in 3 weeks. So, and then we were never not profitable for a season ever again, even with acquiring some used vehicles, right? So I don't like losing money in a business. I don't think you should lose money in a business ever. I think you should be profitable and grow a company. And if it's not profitable in the first 3 months, then you need to find a different business to do. In my opinion, it's too risky.
Nice. Now you've said, you've talked about boring businesses, which I love that concept. And you said they're the fastest way to get rich. So can you tell us what one or two boring business models that people could realistically launch while still running either another business or, working a 9 to 5?
Yeah, I think it's if you have no skill, like some people have unique skills. A buddy of mine can climb trees and take trees down because he worked for a tree crew for 3 years. He can go trade his time for $400 an hour and build a business very quickly because he has that unique skill. Another one is a metal fabricator. He can build gates. He can build unique things at people's homes. He can trade his time for almost $500 an hour doing some of these high-end projects. Another person builds custom cabinetry. Again, can trade his time for $200-$300 an hour. A lot of people have no skills. They don't have that one thing. Like, I don't know what I'm good at. Well, do you have any money? No, I don't have any money either. In that case, clean something, move something, or repair something. Figure out a way to do it and go trade your time for $20 an hour, and then $50 an hour, and then $100 an hour. And when you get to $100 an hour, go back to selling more work and hire somebody for $25 an hour to do the job and start to, hire some people and build some leverage. So whether it be power washing, deck staining, any number of businesses that are incredibly low risk to start, I love it. And I actually have the most popular page on my website ever is my 200 plus business idea list. And if you go to sweatystartup.com/ideas, you can download a PDF with, it's now got 400 plus sweaty startups. Just go down the list and figure out one you might be good at.
Nice.
Now you walked us up the ladder of, because we talk about that as Amazon sellers, that we need to set a value for our time. And we talk about it when people are ready to get into outsourcing and hiring VAs and whatnot. for somebody without skill, as if they're looking at a blank slate and they don't know where to go, what advice would you give to someone just setting that first number of what their time is worth? Is it possible to undersell yourself?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And look, there is something to be said for going around your neighborhood and getting your first job and breaking even on time and equipment to make the mistakes on, you know what I mean? But very, very soon you need to be making $25 an hour if you're a sole proprietor. If you're not, then you're well undercharging. And then if you have any equipment at all or any travel, you need to be billing $30 to $50 an hour for your time, in my opinion. You can do that squeegeeing windows. So there's no excuse to work, as a sole proprietor where you got to bring in your own business. You got to collect payment. You got to send an invoice. You're not just working a job for somebody else. There's no excuse to not be making, $30 plus while you're on the job laboring.
That's great. See, Chris, this is the episode that I make my kids watch. That's
right. Right.
Well, that's what changed. Like, it changed my entire outlook on entrepreneurship and business when I was 14 years old. And my dad was working for a developer in town, and he had a couple shopping centers, and the old man that was mowing those shopping centers had a heart attack at like 54. He was fine. He was okay, but he could not mow the lawns anymore. And my dad, crazy, again, just this energy and, and irrational confidence, said, oh, my 14-year-old can do this. Because I had been mowing our home lawn for, 4 or 5 years on a 60-inch zero-turn lawnmower. So the next thing I know, it's July heat in Indiana, and I'm on a main drag in Tell City, Indiana. Look at the movie theater in Tell City if you want to just go on Google Maps while you're watching this. Like, that's the lawn that I mowed first. I was on a 60-inch zero-turn mower. My dad dropped me off to do the job, went to work for, to pick up something at his office, drove back, and I was halfway done with the lawn, but I didn't pick up any of the trash. And I turned what were 200 or 300 pieces of trash into 2,000 or 3,000 pieces of trash with this lawnmower. It was a massive problem. I was 14. I was hot. It was 95 degrees out. And I had a breakdown. I started crying. I was like, Dad, this is crazy. What are you doing here? Like, I'm scared. There's cars everywhere. I don't know anybody. There's trash all over this yard. Like, what am I even doing here? He put his arm around me and he said, Nick, you can quit, but not until you get your first check. And that's the best thing that ever happened to me, because when I got that first check, I did some math. And I was making $22 an hour while my friends were making $6.25 working at Subway.
Mm-hmm.
And that changed everything about the rest of my life.
Interesting. That's a great story. I want to take a quick hard right for a moment, because I have seen you talk about how you want to, people talk about generational wealth, but you want to build a generational business to bring your kids in. That's a goal of mine as well. I want to have a business with my kids when they're ready.
Yeah.
What kind of things are you doing now to, I guess, maybe guide them down that path?
Yeah, I think far too many parents, I feel super passionate about this. Thank you for asking. First of all, I'm not perfect. I'm learning a lot. My oldest kid is only 7. I talk to a lot of very wealthy people who have awesome kids, and I try to get advice from them, because I think that's pretty rare when somebody has significant wealth and has good kids instead of, asshole kids. But like, I am not putting a bubble around my kids. I am letting them fail when the stakes are low. I'm not trying to protect them from all pain. I'm not catching them if their bike is starting to tip over. I'm not stopping them if I know that they left something out and the dog is going to chew it up and they're going to have to go without that toy. Like, I'm letting them make these low, I'm letting them like not do their homework and like get in trouble by the teacher and not get their sticker and not get to go on Friday to pick out a toy like all the other kids. And then they come home crying. Like, those are low. Those are other parents would just stop that. They would put their kid in a bubble and protect them. I'm like letting them getting used to the fact that, hey, if you make a decision, you live with the consequences. Maybe they're 18 and they drop an iPhone and they're like, Dad, I don't have enough money to get a new iPhone. I'll be like, well, it just keeps going up. And then when you're 25 and or maybe if you start a little lower at 12, they drop the phone. And then at 18, they're at a party and it's 2 a.m. and they make the decision to drive home. Like, am I going to be there to bail them out of jail? Like, that's like, the decisions as you go up in life get more and more intense. So I went to Cornell, where I watched my floor 10 of the kids there had their parents do every single thing for them to get them into Cornell, watched them do their homework, wrote their college essays, made every single decision for them so that their kids could not think for themselves. They're robots. Those kids got to college and they couldn't figure out how to get from North Campus to College Town to go to a party. They're calling their mom saying, like, when's the bus schedule? Or should I get a cab? It's a little bit cold. Should I walk? It blew my mind at how dependent these kids were on their parents. Totally incompetent. I don't know how they ever hacked it and made it in life, honestly. So I'm letting my kids build the muscle of decision making. And the second part is I'm trying to turn them into communicators. Like, they can look an adult. My 7-year-old can look an adult in their eye and ask them a question about themselves. I'll be with a buddy and I'll walk in the Chick-fil-A and I'll say, hey guys, just so you know, my 7-year-old's going to come in here to order. I'm right outside. He's going to tell you what he wants. Just hang with me. And they're like, oh yeah, awesome. And I make him go in and place the family's order. Little things like that just a little bit of uncomfort that I'm kind of getting them used to doing.
Yeah, I like that. I make my son go in and pay for gas. He hates it, But
picking up the phone. Like, my parents used to make me call and set up a reservation for us to go to dinner. And like, most high school kids now can't pick up the phone and call somebody because they have so much anxiety around that.
Mm-hmm.
That ain't gonna fly in my house.
I like that. Your tweet, and this is, I think it was a while ago, but your tweet about your son dropping the ice cream, like, I don't know. To me, it was a perfect tweet, and the hate you got over that was insane.
I embellished the story because I knew it was going to fire people up. He ate nearly the whole thing and he set it down and it fell over. And then he started to cry because he wanted another one. I'm like, bud. Like, so I told everybody he dropped it. He saved up money all week, working a job, bought the ice cream, dropped it after the second lick, and I refused to buy him another one. And yeah, they got very, very upset, but it wasn't wholly true. I have a heart.
Right. Oh, that's great. All right. So just a little bit ago, you brought up leverage, and it's not always money that's leverage in a business. You can use systems, you can use teams. Yes, you can use financing and other people's money. What does good leverage look like for a solopreneur trying to maybe go the multi-business route like you have?
Well, leverage for them is to hire that first international employee for $800 a month and get 20 hours back. And then instantly their hourly wage goes from $25 to $40 an hour when they make that move. And then they can think outside their business. They can work on things that are important, but not urgent. They can actually think about growing their company instead of just being stuck in the weeds, blocking and tackling. That's the smallest form of leverage. And the end goal, the ultimate form of leverage, in my opinion, is just to not have to do business with assholes. Like, I have a whole section in my book about, like, what is leverage? Leverage is living in a world where one person, no one person has the ability to mess up my situation. Almost nobody can say that. They have a business partner that has the majority. They have a main investor that if they pulled the plug, something would be off. They have Amazon. Their manager at Amazon makes one decision and fucks up everything for them. And then there's like people who work a job where if their boss doesn't think they're doing a good job and wants to let them go, their entire ability to feed their family's gone. They have no leverage. But if you can get to a point where you have enough investments, enough assets, enough cash, enough of a network that you don't have to do business with assholes and not a single one person could mess up your world, then you have the ultimate form of leverage, in my opinion.
We're so excited to talk to you. Like, we could have written like 10 pages of notes and had to pare it down. So I apologize. We're not talking about the book enough. That's essentially what we're here, what you're doing the circuit for. So the book, again, is called The Sweaty Startup. Can you give us one core idea from the book that you think people need to hear the most?
Yeah, the book, the great thing about the book is that I've read a lot of business books that are really frustrating because you read one little gold nugget and then it spends 8, 10, 20 pages repeating itself, supporting that one little gold nugget. I tell 30 stories in this book with 30 different concepts that I very quickly go through. And it's a smorgasbord of pick what works for you in your life and what you agree with and ignore the rest. But there's going to be something in here that can help your company, help you earn more money, help you pick a career, something along those lines. But overall point of the book is that like a main concept is like, don't follow your passion, be illogical, or don't be illogical, be logical and figure out what is the lowest barrier to entry and like easiest way to do something and make money, because business is not a Olympic gymnastics routine where you get additional money for doing something really hard. Business is not a David Goggins workout where you get glory or extra status if what you're doing is really hard. And then the other part is just think differently about entrepreneurship. What the media portrays entrepreneurship as and where the true wealth is in our society are not the same thing. You go down the streets of any city in America and say, what's does entrepreneurship mean to you? They'll say Shark Tank, Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, Silicon Valley, raise capital, Uber, change the world. But you go to the nicest country club in your town and my town, and you ask everybody there what they do. It's normal, boring stuff. You find the wealthiest people in this town, in your town, in any town, who have the private jets and fly to the big ass beach houses and have members of 6 country clubs or do whatever. Very few, if any, raise venture capital. Very few, if any, had a new idea. So sometimes you need to close your computer and look up and be realistic about the way the world works.
Yeah, absolutely. That's we've talked about it on the show. There's like a growing sentiment that the playbook that you have to go to college and work for 40 years and save 10% and whatnot. Yeah, we're kind of there's at least a subsection of people that are realizing that maybe that's not the right way to go, and it's refreshing. I mean, you're essentially just taking it back to basics, and by going back to the foundations of these unglamorous jobs, that's essentially leverage in and of itself. Because Chris, how many times have you talked about how happy you would be if your son became a plumber? Not only because of that skill and the profession, but the fact that it's going to be a form of leverage, because there are less and less plumbers out there. It's hard to find.
Electrician, surveying. I tried to get a surveyor to survey a house that I was buying. Called 15 people on a normal business day, and one answered, and he basically got to name his price. And he came out and did the survey on pen and paper.
That's crazy.
So yeah, it's like you get to pick your competition in this world. And you can play against LeBron James for $1 billion, or you can play against a 5th grade girl for $30,000 a month. Which game do you want to play? You want to take the half court shot where if you make it 1 in 100 times, you get $20 million, or do you want to take the layup where you can make $5,000 a month, but you're going to make that layup 80% of the time?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. People set their goals. Another part of the book that I'm pretty passionate about is that people set their goals far too high with entrepreneurship. They think about the $1 billion exit. They think about the private jet. They think about where they need to be 10 years from now. Like, forget all that and write down your number. Like, figure out what number you need coming in every single month to send your kids to a good school, to put your family in a safe vehicle, to go to a restaurant and order what you want to order without looking at the price, and build out your lifestyle and figure out how much money you need. For me, when I did this in 2013, before inflation doubled the price of everything, I needed $20,000 a month. With $20,000 a month, I realized I could play golf at a great country club. I could take a couple vacations a year, especially if I could make that money while working 10, 15 hours a week, doing what I love to do. Then I had the ultimate form of leverage. I had time leverage. But people set their goals way too high. And if you set a really high goal where you want to be a billionaire, then you're going to end up taking that moonshot where one in 2,000 people, succeed. But if you just look at the market unemotionally and figure out what's the easiest path of least resistance for me to get my number coming in, what should I go after? What should I chase? It's a whole new perspective.
I like that. I like that framework. In the space that we're in, we see a lot of people who flex, rented Lambos and Rolexes and things like that. And when we talk about, hey, this business, you can exactly this business, you can make an extra $5,000 a month, even an extra $1,000 a month is absolutely life changing to a lot of people. But get there first and then get to your goal. And I wish more people talked about that. But
yep.
Speaking on this, you talk about this idea of avoiding green button businesses. Can you kind of expand on that a little bit?
Yeah. So there's businesses that are targets for dreamers and passion projects for people.
Thank you for listening to the Clear the Shelf podcast. My magnanimous co-host Chris Racic has put together a gift for you for being a listener. It's called the Monthly Goal Tracking Spreadsheet, and it's free. The spreadsheet will help you break down and track how much you've purchased, which should be a leading indicator of how much you will sell, and then you'll be able to track how much you've sold as well as your estimated monthly profit on a daily basis. This will all feed into the daily averages so you can ensure that you're on track to meet your goals each and every month. Grab it for free today over at cleartheshelf.com/goal-tracking. Thanks again for being a listener. Now back to the show.
A restaurant is the best example because somebody's a good cook, and every time they have friends over, their friends all say, "You're such a good cook. You really should start a restaurant." When in reality, restaurants, 80% of them fail, and the other 20%, a lot of those people just have a job. They own a job that has no flexibility. They can't leave. They're there until 2 a.m. on Friday nights and so on. So if it's fun and sexy, I like to just avoid it altogether because I'm going to be competing with people who are not rational players in the market. And when you're competing with people who are irrational, they'll work for less money. They'll go on for too long when they should have shut something down. And it's not fun to compete against those types of people.
So, so we've got a lot of listeners in the, probably in the zone of I'm making $50,000 to $200,000 a year selling on Amazon. If you could put yourself in their shoes, because I know that your CPA and now business partner in one of your ventures, he described you as basically light speed once you get an idea, from idea to execution.
Yep.
What would you, if you were in that Amazon seller's shoes, what would you tell them? What path would you take to grow the wealth faster, essentially?
Yeah.
Or what
How many hours would you say on average for the person who's earning 100 to 150K a year? How many hours a week do you think they have to spend to, keep that coming in?
That's a good question. There's some variance there. Because there's a lot of hands-on. There are plenty of people putting in 50 hours, 60 hours, because
it's
won't
almost a reverse correlation though between the hours and the money. Like nobody making 200 grand a year on Amazon is working 50, 60. Maybe they are, but it's a different type of work, right?
Yeah. I mean, at some point you have to outsource.
Let's assume they have some. Let's assume they have some time, a little bit of time. I think my advice would be to walk around the world in your day-to-day life with a curiosity of business and assets and real estate and everything else. Everywhere you go and around your dinner table, find friends who think this way. And you guys probably do it because it's a natural occurrence of a lot of entrepreneurs. You think about how businesses make money. Think about how they work. When you walk in a restaurant, do the math per table, do the math per bill. Like think about how much these waitresses are making in tips or the waiters, and then think about the expenses back in the kitchen. How much do you think this restaurant makes a night? Then you go and you're looking at the garbage truck driving through your neighborhood, picking up 50 houses in one neighborhood, and they're charging everybody $60 a month for trash service. Wow, that truck's probably 100 grand. So let's say it's $4 grand a month of overhead for that truck with fuel and all. Got 2 guys on it, probably hit 10 neighborhoods like this in a day. Man, that waste management company might be making 30% margins on this stuff, and it's recurring. You start thinking about business like that, you just start to spot opportunities. You start to see what business is probably a good business. That was my scenario. That was my scenario in 2014 when I realized that the business I was in was really hard and could never scale to the level I wanted it to scale to. I was like, where are the normal people making really good money? Where are the dumb people getting rich? And it didn't take a whole lot of time to realize that self-storage is a really good business. Really good business.
You've been able to scale multiple businesses, but I think you've done it without necessarily falling into shiny object syndrome. And that's something that I know I'm guilty of. I know a lot in our audience are going to be guilty of. How do you decide what deserves your time? And I guess how could others build their own decision filter for getting rid of shiny object syndrome?
If everybody on the internet is excited about it, it's a terrible opportunity. period. So AI, there's 50 AI startups in every niche, and I don't know if one of them is ever going to make a profit, because what they're just building skins on top of learning, language models that are open source. Like, I don't know how any of them are going to make any money. Like, I'm just going to say it. Like, I don't get it. Same with Web3. Before that, I didn't buy into the autonomous vehicles or the scooters. Like, just it goes back in time where if everybody's excited about something working, the competition is just going to flow right into it. And I think there was a heyday for Amazon selling where people made bank. But then there was a race to it, and you saw it get a little bit more cutthroat, and a lot of people got washed out. Now it might be some niches are getting good again. Like, that's just the cycle of business. So yeah, it's a delicate balance.
So with the absence, so if you have to look at it in that practical way, and you have to remove the emotion from it, can you talk a little bit about where the drive internally comes from to run that business? Like, I don't know if you were excited about self-storage, back in 13 or 14. Is it, do you kind of compartmentalize the business itself and the allure versus, your personal drive?
Yeah, one of the things that has been a massive blessing for me over the years is that I just have an energy and an excitement about little things that other people don't have. And I think one of my blessings in the early days is I wasn't reading Steve Jobs and watching Shark Tank and like following TechCrunch and taking all the entrepreneurship courses and dreaming about moving to Silicon Valley. And I think that was a blessing for me because I still got excited about moving a bunch of boxes, sweating for a couple of weeks and making $3,000. And it's kind of lost in entrepreneurship culture that trading your time for money and sweating and getting excited about something where other people will make fun of you can lead to bigger and better things. So most people, opportunities are everywhere. They're passing them by. And it's like a dog with drive or without drive. I just got a puppy. Sees a ball rolling down the hallway, and it's going to just do everything it can to get that ball because it's excited. Other people, an old dog, a 10, 12-year-old dog, will just lay on its bed and watch that ball roll right by. I think it's the same for humans. Like, opportunities are everywhere. Every opportunity is going to have 100 reasons why it won't work. I literally had 50 people tell me that building that first self-storage facility was not going to work. The land wasn't flat enough, was a big problem. The land had a lot of topographical issues. We were spending $250,000 for a piece of property. Then we had to build it. We had no experience. There were 100 reasons why I should have given up and not done that project, but built the building, all in for $2.9 million. It's worth over $10 million today. And it's set that project alone, if I lived a very frugal life, could support me for my entire life. So it's hard to say, but just having that energy and drive to go make some money. A lot of people are lazy, man. A lot of people are lazy.
Chop wood, carry water, right, Chris? It's
Yep.
And then if you have that whole, and then if you own that whole space to yourself because nobody else wants it, all the better, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Nick, I want to talk about this is going to feed right into somewhere.com. So in entrepreneurship in general, right? That's kind of how we set the stage with this question, because many people in our space, we get stuck wearing all of the hats. Entrepreneurship, like, you kind of romanticize it when you're in a day job, and then you quit your job and you realize everything is your responsibility, right? We got to do sourcing, we got to do prepping, we got to do the books after the fact. You talk a lot about process, delegation, and hiring. What's step one in getting out of your own way?
I think like you have to do a audit of your time. And I like the quadrants, the 4 quadrants of time management. There's the important stuff and the not important stuff. And there's the urgent stuff and the not urgent stuff. Working in the not urgent but important stuff. Doing marketing, doing sales. That's never urgent. It's never urgent. Doing hiring, doing research on your next SKU. All that stuff is not ever pressing. What's pressing is like talking to the customer that has a problem right now, or dealing with the employee that has a problem right now, or dealing with an issue to get stuff shipped right now. So many business owners spend all their time on that urgent stuff that they get caught up in what they feel like is a productive cycle, but it's not. So if you do a time audit, and you're spending less than 30% of your time on the important but not urgent stuff, sales, marketing, business development, hiring, then you need to figure out who for $4 or $5, $6 an hour sometimes can do a lot of that other stuff that clears up time for you. Like I think Amazon selling, service business, any business you're in, if you're not spending a good chunk of your time in sales and business development and marketing, then you're leaving money on the table, frankly, because it's the highest value stuff. I still get on sales calls at a lot of my companies because it's the highest value stuff I can do. So an easy way is to audit your time, make a bucket of $10 an hour work. Or if you're hiring an American, it's $20 an hour work. It can be somewhat complex. Put it all in a bucket, figure out how many hours a week you're doing that, and then hire somebody in Latin America or South Africa for $1,200 a month to take all that off your plate while you go work on the important and not urgent stuff.
All right. So Nick, the follow-up question to that, taking just a unemotional look at the tasks that are important and time management and whatnot. Another issue with an entrepreneur is the fact that there's always something we could be doing to make more money, but yet you got a lot of hobbies, right? And you'll have to tell me what your handicap is, because I know you like to play golf and there's some hunting and family time, of course. So how do you know when you're allowed to, when do you give yourself permission to turn it off and be done for the day?
Yeah, that's a really, really hard thing to balance. I'll just start by saying that. I am addicted to progress and building companies. I love it. It's very easy. It feels like a real life video game mixed with gambling all at the same time, that it's really fun to win and it's very hard to put down sometimes. But I also understand that there's 6 gardens or so in my life. There's my physical health, there's my family, there's my hobbies, there's my friends, there's my spirituality, there's my business, and a couple more even. So if I don't water those other things, life is not going to be fun when I'm 50 years old. I'm going to be divorced. I'm going to be overweight. I'm going to be out of shape. I'm going to have no relationships. So I'm also selfish and on a long-term time horizon, in that I want to be 80 years old and I want to still be able to get on the ground with my great grandkids and play with them. I want to be 85 and I want to, be able to play around a golf. So, and my real vision, my end goal is to be in a chair in a big ass house with my kids, my in-laws, their spouses, my grandkids and great grandkids, all just running around messing my entire house up on Christmas Eve. Like, that's my vision. So I realized that if I put all my eggs in the business basket, I might be rich, but I won't have any of that other stuff. I won't have the body to go do those things. I won't have the health. I won't have the relationship with my wife, my kids. So it's a kind of a non-negotiable for me, but it's really hard. It's really, really hard to say no to another sales meeting that can drive the business a little bit further, to say no to an opportunity that comes in. But I have to say no to a lot of stuff. Never gets easier.
Mm-hmm. I want to take a little bit of a shift, because content creation has been kind of massive for you, especially Twitter, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And if someone wants to be able to do things like attract deal flow or partnerships or talent, or heck, just be able to learn things faster, where do they start building that personal brand, especially when many people want to be anon all the time?
I'll say I have a whole new respect for people who want to be anonymous, because I get it. What happens on the internet is not all good. So yeah, it's not for everybody. If you don't have thick skin, don't do it. But it's been massively advantageous for me. But I'll say the first place to start, and this might not be great to hear for people who want to do this, is that just like how to get married, you have to become somebody worth marrying. To attract a good business partner, you have to be able to add more value to the business than the business pays you. Every relationship in life is the other person's selfish, whether we admit it or not. My wife married me because I can make her life better than without me. And maybe my relationship with my kids is the only one where they don't really have a choice. That we birthed them. But I think if you reset and say, hey, look, everybody in this world is selfish. My employees work for me because I can pay them more, give them more opportunity, give them more flexibility, something. Vendors are selling to me so they can make a profit. Luckily, we live in a world where many people can win together. It's a beautiful thing, the abundance of this world that we live in. But the internet is no different. If you don't have anything to bring to the table, nobody's going to want to follow you. So we have a ton of people who want to build a personal brand, want to build media, want to get followers, but they've never done anything. And every single thing that people read on the internet is filtered through by the quality of the source and the reputation of the source and what has this person done. Like 20 of the most followed people on social media are professional athletes that are top 1,000% of all athletes, or they're artists or musicians or politicians that have risen to the very, very high top of their game and they're the best. Business is no different. Bill Ackman and Naval are the most, followed business people on Twitter, and they're both billionaires. So like people want to have the following, people want to do amazing things and use a personal brand to accelerate their business, but they're getting it backwards. You got to go do something notable, become a professional at something, and have something to add to the table to teach people before you really are going to see a lot of that acceleration. Now, there is something to be said for sharing. There's something to be said for documenting. There's something to be said for the network that you can grow organically with 500 followers. Shoot, 5,000 is the sweet spot. So it's not wholly true, but don't expect to build a media empire if you're regurgitating Steve Jobs threads.
Oh, that's fair. Speaking about when you're in the weeds and in the grind, each of us is going to hit a wall at some point in time. You share a story in the book about, I believe it was Labor Day around 2013, right? Storage squad's only a couple of years old at that point. And I guess in the Boston area, every school moves back in on that weekend. And you've got about 7,000 square feet of warehouse space full of 5,000 customers' possessions that need moved. And about everything that could go wrong did in that weekend, right? We're talking car accidents, employees quitting, endless amounts of stairs that need traversed with heavy boxes. Yep. What changed for you after you got through that weekend?
Yeah, I think it also was, I was in Philadelphia in, early August for their returns. And then I was in Ithaca after that. Then I was heading to Penn State for 3 days of the busiest days. And then you go to Boston last. And yeah, I had a anxiety attack on the side of the road when it really hit the fan, when one of my guys ripped the top off one of my trucks. Another guy put diesel or gasoline in a diesel engine. So yeah, it humbled me for sure, but it also made me a lot stronger because I realized that, hey, I can get through this. I can do it. And I can be smarter and not, totally abuse my body for 3 weeks to do it. But it made me a harder entrepreneur and it made everything else less stressful for sure.
Yeah. There's something to be said. Amazon changes the rules. They move the goalpost quite a bit on us. And we see a lot of people that we talk to, they get emotional about it, and they get angry and they say some really weird, definitive things. But there's something to be said about being battle tested. And we've talked about, where a CEO is essentially a problem solver. That's kind of duty number one, right?
We were sitting in it was the next year after this, actually. So we hadn't learned our lesson. We're in the middle of another stressful year. My partner and I are sitting in Loco's Pub in Ithaca, New York, having a beer after the busy season. So we had just done all the pickups. It was finally a moment to reflect. And we spent about an hour, my business partner and I, just complaining to each other, venting. Our employees are idiots. The real estate market's brutal to find warehouses. The truck rental company's incompetent. They promised us a bunch of trucks that they didn't have for us. I can't believe how many mistakes our employees are making, by the way. I can't believe our employees won't show up to work. I can't believe how much money we're losing because our employees don't know how to write invoices. And eventually we're just like, my partner shook me. He's like, Nick, we need to wake up. It's like, we're complaining about the labor market, that we can't find good employees. There's a Lowe's in Ithaca that employs over 100 people at minimum wage. Like, how do they do it? Like, as a business owner, we have to take ownership over these problems. It's our fault. And he started saying, it's our fault. And we now have this thing still to this day where every time we complain about something, we're like, yeah, well, that's our fault. We are the business owner. We're the ones who made the decision. Even if you look at the hardest business in the world, we mentioned restaurants earlier. There's several restaurant groups that have scaled to billions of dollars of revenue. Texas Roadhouse is my favorite example. They made $600 million last year profit in the restaurant business.
Wow.
Over $3.5 billion of revenue. So if they can do it, what's stopping some mom and pop restaurant owner from doing it? So as soon as you have that sense of extreme ownership, you start to actually solve some of these problems instead of just accepting them as fact. So we drastically kind of simplified the job that we were asking our employees to do so that they could win. We specialized some people. We hired some people internationally to like do a couple of our core functions, like create our invoices, specialize in that so that we could really train them how to do it. We stopped hemorrhaging money on our invoices and stuff like that. So yeah, it was a mindset shift that came from super, super stressful, busy seasons on the job, but made us way better operators.
One of my favorite stories, or maybe frameworks from your book, is you said you were sitting on the front porch. I think you said in a rocking chair, and a buddy of yours is asking about a business. Would this be a good business to get into?
Yeah.
And you run them through the 10-minute drill.
Yeah, let's do it. So I have friends all the time reach out and they're like, Nick, I want to talk about this business idea. So now I combine it with bourbon, golf, or beer, which are my three favorite things. So he comes in, we're actually on my back porch right up here, right above my home office. And it's a Sunday afternoon. And he's like, Nick, I want to start a house painting business. And he's like, starts walking me through it. Wants my advice. He starts saying, I met with 3 franchises to potentially start. I'm looking at the franchise agreements. I bought a web domain. I did a logo on 99 Designs. I built the website, and he'd done all this himself. He'd only spent a couple $100 on these things, but he'd also like spec'd out full painting rigs and like had a van picked out that he wanted to buy. He had done 3 months worth of work to figure out if this was a viable business, but he hadn't talked to a single customer and he hadn't sold a single job. And he's like, Nick, what do you think? What do you think about this? I'm like, doesn't matter what I think. He's like, what do you mean? Like, entrepreneurship. How does it not matter what you think? It's like, it doesn't matter what I think about this business idea. It matters how much demand there is and how much supply there is and what the competitive landscape in this town looks like for this job. Like, tell me about your competitive research. And he's like, I haven't done a whole lot. What do you recommend? And I'm like, okay. Pulled up my phone, got on Google Maps, typed in house painting near me. 15 companies showed up. I pushed the first one, the closest one, and I hit call. So Sunday afternoon. Guy answers the phone, super professional, says, hey, I can be out at your house tomorrow morning to give you a quote, and my main crew is free on Wednesday to start the job. It's 3 days. Like, this is less than 72 hours from this moment that he can start painting my house. So I'm like, okay, let me talk to the wife, and I hang up. Call another guy, doesn't answer. Call the third guy, and he is like very aggressive with me, like wanting the job. He literally looks on Google Maps, gets a picture of my house, quotes me a price, says he can be there tomorrow morning to do the job. Like, okay, hang up, call the next guy. Again, really wanted the job, and says to me at the end of the conversation, I will beat any price that you get in town. You're welcome to call everybody. I'll beat any price, and we're going to use the best paint. And again, I'm available this week to do the job. I hang up the phone, look at my friend, and it took about 10 minutes. And I'm like, what do you think? And he's like, I don't know about this.
What business did he end up going into instead?
He still has his W-2, unfortunately.
Yeah. I'm curious how far he sunk in the chair as you were making those calls one after another.
Well, I mean, look,
that's a great story.
That's a thing in my book, is that I'm not going to mince words, and I'm going to tell a lot of people what they don't want to hear. That it's not rocket science. It's not rocket science. I like going out. If I had a business idea to power wash somebody's driveway, I would print out a bunch of flyers on my printer right here. I'd hang them on doors all around my neighborhood until the phone rang. The next week, I'd go to the wealthiest neighborhood in town the next weekend when I had some time, and I'd knock on every single door, offering to power wash their driveways. And if I didn't get any customers in 2 or 3 days, then that'd be that. I wouldn't be looking at websites or branding or 99 Designs or franchisees or anything.
Yeah, it may not be what people want to hear, but look at how efficient it is. You know, you cut through all the fluff and you got right to one of the basic pillars of market research. You know,
How hungry are the people in this business? Like the surveyor example that I gave, where I called 12 different surveyors and one answered the phone. Or there's the house painting company where I made 4 calls on a Sunday, 3 of them answered, and all 3 of them wanted to compete with each other on price to get the job that week.
Yeah.
Which business you want to be in?
That's all the information you need to make a good decision right there.
Yep.
So you have a massive social media following. I think you're pushing like 800,000 combined. And I want to bring up platform risk. That's a word that's volleyed around. We deal with it with the Amazon Marketplace, of course, and
I've
you deal with
experienced it on
with social media.
it on X. Like the algorithm changes every day, and my tweets don't get the views that they got 3 years ago.
Yeah. So the logical solution to combating platform risk is diversification, I think, or at least one of the ways to combat it. So what common mistakes do you see entrepreneurs make when they try to diversify their empire?
Look, there's something to be said for just certain businesses being too hard to scale. Like it's true. Like you're picking. Do you want to play against LeBron James or do you want to play against the 5th grade girl? Like how much potential is in the business? How big can it potentially get? And if the answer is not very big, or it's only a certain few, it's a conglomerate, it's really competitive. Only if you make it, then yes, you need to have your eyes open and look at different businesses. So I'm kind of talking out of 2 sides of my mouth here. Some of the wealthiest people that I know started one business and grew that one business to 50 million plus of revenue. But if I didn't go build that self-storage facility in 2015, which was totally different than our main business, which was the pickup and delivery storage, then I wouldn't be sitting here today. But running multiple businesses is really hard. So yeah, there's no easy answer to this. Competition is fierce in every business, and there's certain time windows when it makes sense to get in and do it. It's hard though, for sure.
We always like to do a little bit of a lightning round at the end. And so the first one is, what is a surprising insight from your Twitter growth that you found?
I think the surprising insight is that I'd say 8 of my 15 best friends I met through Twitter.
That's awesome.
They're all in different cities throughout the country. They're all very driven and ambitious. So we hit it off, and yeah, that's been a massive positive for me, my life.
Who's a non-famous entrepreneur that more people should study?
Oh man, I'll just like the dedication at the beginning of my book. Like, this book is for the people doing boring things over and over again to make a better life for their children and their children's children. Like, people should study that person, and they're not famous. There's not a single one of them that's out there doing different things, but they're in your town, they're in your neighborhood, they're in your city, and they are working to build equity, to build businesses, to make their kids have a better life. And I think that's the thing that people don't realize about entrepreneurship, is that we all do this hoping to get rich in 2 years or make 50 grand a month in 5 years, when there's first generation immigrants that get off the boat in New York City and work hourly jobs their entire life to send their kids to a better high school. And then those kids work a little bit better hourly jobs their whole lives to send their kids to college. And then 3 generations later, somebody's set up to where they can be an entrepreneur, and they can take that risk. And that's the inspiring stuff for me.
Mm-hmm. Those people are a lot easier to find than I think people think too.
Yeah. And they're way more open to talking. They're way more open to talking to you than you think.
Yeah. I go to one particular gas station. It's a little mom and pop convenience store. But come to find out, the guy actually owns like 12 gas stations. And when I run into him, I can ask him questions, and I mean, he essentially just lays out his entire playbook. It's awesome.
Yeah, the wealth is hidden in plain sight for sure.
Yeah. What's the best investment that you've made under $1,000?
Oh man. That's a really Good question. Something that I use every night to fall asleep is a Kindle holder that's on a platform, and there's a piece of metal that comes up and bends, and it's flexible, and I can read my Kindle book without making my arms go numb. Um, actually, I have a note in my phone if you want me to just rattle off some of my favorite ones, because I was gonna write something on this, but I haven't gotten around to it yet.
Yeah.
Let me see. A butter dish, having actual real butter on your counter at room temperature that you can get is amazing.
Now, are you using a regular butter dish or like a butter bell?
It's just a oblong. It's made for a stick of butter.
Okay.
And it's like a little plate. A standing desk that goes up and down. I have an ultra wide monitor here that you can't see. That's an LG 40-inch, I think, and it's really awesome. A Garmin watch with a light. This was actually $900, so it's a great example. I use this light 10 times a day, and I'll actually never wear another watch because it's that big of a game changer to go do anything in an area of low light, whether you're camping, whether you're getting up before your kids or going to bed after your wife. It's unbelievable. A sauna, that was about $5,000, but it's been life-changing. A country club membership was one of the best things I've ever invested in, just for quality of life. Invisalign for $5,000, I think, was an amazing investment. I mean, I actually have confidence in my smile, and I think to do that for $5,000 is unfreaking believable if you're doing any kind of business stuff. A rooftop tent on top of my F-150. I think I spent $3,000 on the iCamper 3.0, but I get so much use out of it. It's a king size bed. I sleep amazing in it up on top of my truck. Plastic Birkenstocks instead of the heavy Birkenstocks were unbelievable. It's called the Arizona brand. Amazing. Saucony Ride 17 running shoes. Wearing them right now. Phenomenally comfortable. I got 25 pairs of the same socks, exact same socks, and it's just made my life in mornings so much less complex. I have a barber that comes to my house and cuts my hair and my 3 kids' hair. And so instead of $30 at the barber shop, she charged me $50 to come to my house, but it saves me a ton of headache. And she comes the second Thursday of every month. All wood hangers for my closet was an awesome life upgrade. Some of these are kind of stupid, but yeah, that's interesting stuff, I guess.
That's great. So besides your own, which everyone should absolutely go out and get your book, can you recommend one book to us? Besides
the 5 Types of Wealth by Sahil Bloom. Have you guys read that yet? He released it 2 months ago.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. Just puts in perspective that money is important, and you should, if you don't have money, you can't do much. And everybody who says money is not everything has never gone and tried to buy something. So I think that's a pretty ridiculous thing to say, but it just puts in perspective the other areas of life, your relationships, your spirituality, your physical health, time that you're going to get with loved ones. So as an entrepreneur, it hit me like a ton of bricks.
And of course, where should people, 1, follow you, and 2, where do you want people to buy your book?
We can put an Amazon link in the show notes. Just Google The Sweaty Startup on Amazon. And let me know what you think. Like, look, if you want to use somewhere.com and you want a discount, you want to get in touch with me, let me know what you think. Like, I read every email that comes in to nick@sweatystartup.com. So, and then another thing is just download that resource on my site, the business idea list on sweatystartup.com/ideas.
Perfect. Yeah, we'll make sure everything is in the show notes. We always end with a quote of the week, and I thought this one was fitting. It's by Naval Ravikant. You get rich by doing things that other people don't want to do. It seemed to really kind of sum up your entire business philosophy. Finding the boring, overlooked, quote unquote, too hard stuff and turning it into your own competitive advantage. So want to end the show by saying, don't forget to grab a copy of Nick's book, The Sweaty Startup. It's going to be on Amazon. We'll make sure that there is a link below the show, and drop a comment on YouTube, and I'll choose. I'm just going to choose 10 random people that leave a comment, and I'll send you guys one of his books for free.
Oh, man, dude, that is so awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Nick, thanks so much for being here, man. It was great to chat.
You guys have a great show. Really appreciate it.
Thanks so much. All right. That's the pod, everybody. Thanks for listening to Clear the Shelf with Chris and Chris. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a screenshot on your phone and share it to Facebook, Instagram, or your favorite FBA group, and be sure to tag me and let me know why you liked it and what you'd like to hear more from us in the future. Also, I'd like to give you some free gifts for listening. Head over to rabbittrailchallenge.com and repricerchallenge.com for some free courses to further your business. Thanks for listening.